So hopefully the screen is visible to you. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So today, at least actually technically last week I was supposed to cover this, but in this lecture, I would like to again briefly touch upon the software requirements analysis before moving to the software design, because the deadline for submitting your SRS is coming, and I thought that let us again revise what software requirement analysis and specification is, this time in more detail. And after the end of the lecture, I will be also showing you four samples of software requirement specifications, which you can go through with your team members and see which one. So you can actually pick the the relevant information from the software requirement specification documents and incorporate that in your own documents if you find relevant. So that is the whole goal of today's lecture, to understand in detail what software requirement specification is and how to go about it, and basically this time to learn about SRS after looking at the examples and samples. Is that clear? So moving forward, again, before I start formally on the lecture, I want to understand from you what is your current understanding of software requirement specification. I know we have been using this term for quite some time in this module, and you're already working on your SRS. So, uh, what do you think is the importance of SRS in the journey towards software development? What, according to you, is the purpose that it serves?
SRS is the written contract between the company that makes and the company for which it makes. It's the promise that the company does to the customer,
So,
which both accept.
okay. So, what are the specific details in the SRS? You mentioned that it's a contract. So, what are the details that are put in that contract?
The details will be what are we going to do and what is their uh, thinking of what we are going to make, and like functional and non-functional requirements, whatever we thought in the previous lecture.
Yes. So, software requirement specification, as you by now hopefully must have understood, is that it's basically a blueprint of the software that you are trying to make. At least on a documentation and theoretical basis, you present to your clients and stakeholders and all the people who will be working on the software as to what all functionalities to expect from the software, and what are the problems it is going to solve, and basically again the quality attributes of the system. So basically it's like a documentation trailer of the software product that you are making, and that is why SRS is important, because a poor SRS or a SRS which has not been written in a detailed manner can really ring the bells of danger to any product or project, because unless and until uh, you know what you're creating, you will be forced to come back to the earlier stages if you go to the implementation without putting considerable thinking into what you are making. And so SRS basically provides us that platform and opportunity to get to know our software better before we actually get to know it in a deeper manner. So that is the importance of understanding software requirement specifications. And the word requirements, again, we have had co- a huge amount of discussion on what software requirements are, the functional requirements, the non-functional requirements, the stakeholder requirements, the transition requirements, and why gathering information on all this is extremely necessary, so that we are one with the software that we are making, and then we can assure the quality of the product that we are making. So software requirement specification basically is the foundation or the pillar on which the software stands. And that is why we generally in the software development lifecycle process, SRS is generally created so that later on it can also be shared. And when different versions of softwares get released, the existing SRS can be edited or amended to cater to the newer demands. So basically, when you are creating a document which specifies requirements, uh, you don't just blankly put the requirements into the document, you analyze the requirements and you elicit the requirements. So basically, there's this entire process. Remember the last time in the lecture, the last slide, there was a diagram in which the feasibility study was done. The results of the feasibility study were recorded, and after that, requirements were gathered. After gathering of requirements, they were analyzed, and after analysis, they were specified. And then later on, they can be maintained or validated. So, this process is somewhat already clear to you, at least in theoretical terms, that even eliciting requirements demands that you communicate with your customers, stakeholders, and client to get to know what exactly they need. And since the requirements keep on changing with time, so it is important to have a consistent dialogue with all the people who will be directly related to your products and the software that you are making. Secondly, you need to analyze the requirements. So let me pause at this moment and ask you that how do you think you can analyze the requirements that you gather? What, according to you, can you do as developers or creators of the product to analyze the requirements? So you have gathered the requirements. How do you analyze them?
Like feasibility, we can check about feasibility. Like, uh, if there is a feature, how we are going to accomplish it? Can it be made, or have someone made it already, or
Okay.
uh, how can we make it, or what are the basic parts of it? Can it be made, or it's impossible? And the economic feasibility, that can this feature be added at the given budget or not, or does it take much than
But
what we are going to use?
here, do you think there's a difference between analysis and feasibility of requirements? So,
Uh, we
yeah.
analyze to understand the feasibility of whatever the requirements there are.
But what if a requirement is actually extremely important for a software product, but because of the given resources and constraints, you find it not very feasible? Then does that requirement become not so relevant to the project that you might be making?
We need to negotiate about it. Why is it not being feasible? How can it be made feasible, or what are the alternatives for the similar requirements? We may think about.
Okay. So remember in our lab session, I had requested you to go through the prioritizing activity for the requirements that you have identified. So basically, in analysis, one of the things you are doing is trying to identify how relevant a particular requirement is for the product that you are making. Now, the definition of relevance changes with context and situations. If you have lots of money, lots of funds, and lots of time, definitely you wouldn't want to cut short on your set of requirements. However, when you have limited time and you have a delivery that has to be made in an urgent basis, then definitely you would want to only include the requirements which provide a sneak peek into the functional rudiments of your software. So again, remember, and please remember this always, that even when you are trying to analyze the requirements, it cannot be done in an isolated manner from the context in which you are operating in. And if it's an academic context, if it's an industrial context, or if it's a funding event, then in all these three scenarios, your answers for requirement analysis and the approach to analyze your requirements will differ. So environment plays a very important role in decision making, even in software development process. Once you have analyzed your requirements, you have finalized your requirements, you have arrived at which priority to give to which one, then you can record your requirements, be it in the form of documentation or use cases or even user stories as it is found in agile methodology and all these things. So uh, again, documentation is important because if you were to create a second version, you can always go back to the previous version and see from where you are coming. So that is why uh, merely gathering requirements is not sufficient. It is important, but what makes your journey smoother is the focus you put on analysis of the requirements and managing your requirements. So there are a couple of techniques that are generally taken up to gather the requirements. Since you are operating in academic universities, you may be limited only to thinking, brainstorming among your team members. But when you are operating at a larger scale to gather requirements, definitely in holding interviews is one of the ways in which you directly ask the people who you think or who you anticipate will be using your product and try to understand that what their needs are directly. And then you can have FGDs, which are focus group discussions. That is also a method in which you are not holding one interview for a person, but for example, you are trying to release a gaming app for 18 plus children, and you gather a sample of 18 plus children, let's say 30. In your locality, you select 30, 18 plus, and less than 23 years children, and you talk to them on an informal manner. So that's the focus group discussions, in which what you're doing is you're gathering large amount of information while talking directly to a group, which is different from holding an interview. Then on your own, you can create a requirement list, get it reviewed by your team members or by the stakeholders or clients you are directly involved in. You can go through an approach of questionnaires in which, even asking questions through a questionnaire is an art. Always remember, if if you were to create a questionnaire uh, to assess if the user is actually going to use your product, never ask direct questions. Always try to ascertain whether or not the people really need your product. So rather than putting biased questions in the questionnaire, which sort of uh, provide the users the reason to use a product, what you can see is that essentially you need to identify the needs and the requirements of your user for the product that you're anticipating. So that will essentially help you to understand whether or not the people really need your project or not, and which again is somehow linked to the requirements that your software is trying to solve. In more modern world, prototyping is one of the ways in which you can gather the requirements. You may have noticed that a few apps launch their beta versions to a selected group of people and give them rewards just to see that how they're interacting with the app and to gather their feedback, so that based on that, so that is also one of the ways to assess the risk, because they want to be extremely sure that before they launch the full-fledged version of the app, whether or not it will be successful or not. So again, giving the prototype to the users is also a way in which the company or the organization or the set of developers can gather whether or not the consumers really require their product or not, or if the product is actually solving some of the problems that consumers are facing. And you can have a mix of these methods also. So again, uh, right now, go back and think, how did you gather requirements for your work? Mostly it was by talking and discussing, and later on they got much more refined after the meetings with the stakeholder. So there is a particular process. If you were to create a software, for example, some of you are working on case one, in which you have to design a tablet based app to gather the data. in that situation, you would definitely talk to, first of all, the NGO team and the workers to really discuss whether or not the product that you have in your mind is actually something that they are finding also useful or not. So that way, you would directly contact them, hold interviews with them, hold one-on-one meetings with them, and try to understand. So, hopefully, from this, I'm trying to provide you an overview that software development is basically a interdisciplinary thing, which is dependent on lots of factors. Definitely, communication is one of the key components of understanding the problem that you're really trying to solve. In fact, some of the groups after the meetings really got to understand what exactly the problem was, and they revisited their functional requirements, non-functional requirements, and the use case diagram. So definitely, if the requirements are not clear, if the clarity on the requirements is not robust, definitely that will leak into the later stages in the software development process. And that is why we are again and again coming back to the importance of requirements and the SRS. So there are some of the factors related to success of a software development, the degree of detail you have put in planning. Now, obviously, there will always be a trade-off, that how much detail you want to be in theory versus the implementation. So you really need to arrive at a point at which you feel that details are sufficient, even if some detail is not there. Later on, it will not be too costly to come back. Then again, the quality of your thinking that you are putting through, and the neatness in your thinking that you are putting through before you actually go to the implementation stage are considerable determinants of the success of a software development. The accuracy with which you have specified your requirements in the software, and the number of meetings you're holding with your stakeholders and clients. Believe it or not, sometimes we get tempted to work in an isolated environment, and it is a problem with all of us. Sometimes I also have found myself in situations in which we kind of feel that we are doing it right, and until we meet and talk to people, and then we have a broader overview of this could have also have been included in the book, and this is what we are not doing it right. So reviews, meetings, especially in the initial stages of planning your software before you go into development stage, is extremely crucial to the success of software development. And at this point, I also want to pause for a moment and ask you, what is your definition of success of a software? So, how would you qualify a software to be a success? What, according to you, uh, reflects that a software is successful? What is your definition of success of a software?
If I am in the demographic of my software and I can use it with ease without scolding the developer, then I think I made a better job at doing it. I like basically believe in dog fooding.
Okay. Uh, Anyone else? What do you think is the what do you think could be the parameters or the factors that would make you feel that the software that you have made is successful? Because when we're talking about factors that relate to the success of software, it is important to also understand that what does success look like when it comes to software product. So anyone else who wants to tell their uh, understanding of what a success of a software looks like?
When we deliver the software within the estimated time, within the promised time.
Okay, so if you have been able to deliver your software in the stipulated time, that according to is success of a software. Okay, now let's think about uh, the solution quality that a software is providing. What about that?
Now also, Sanidhya has some reply in chat.
When major percent of users are satisfied. Okay. Then again, so users will be satisfied only when they feel that their problem is being tackled by a software. So since you are in the stage of software development, it would be a good point in time at this stage to understand and to devise a metric with discussion with your team members that after you have actually implemented even version 1 or some functional ability of your software, you can come back and evaluate whether or not you think your software that you have created is success or not. The definition of success that you need to decide in your software development process, so that once your software is complete you can assess your software based on the benchmark that you have decided. So as much as important it is to identify the factors related to success of a software, in your context you also need to understand uh, when would you claim that the software is successful. Now, Sanidhya mentioned that it could be the user satisfaction. Then again, that can be gauged when you present your software to people and gauge their feedback or review from that. So, uh, for all the groups that are working, try to understand and try to think over with your team members that what would success for the product that you are making look like, because then only you can evaluate it. Moving forward, just have a look at this sort of cartoon and let me know what do you gain out of it. So, what do you think is going on in the conversation between these two people? Okay, so Prasad, you're mentioning improper communication. So, what exactly makes you feel that the communication is imperfect, improper? Mokrit has mentioned most people are not aware of the requirements of the software. Users don't exactly know the need of the software. So let me again come back to the root question. Why do you think the users may not know the requirements or the need of the software?
Because when they use something, they know that they doesn't feel good about something, but they don't exactly know why they feel good, why they feel bad or something. Only the sometimes the technical people know why they feel bad or something, how to rectify it. Most of the people who use the apps doesn't know why or what are the underlying things are. They just know that someone can do it, but no one asks and no one does.
Okay. So most of the time, if you were to look at user psychology, especially in consumer psychology books, you would understand that most of the times customers themselves are not aware of what they really need or require. So definitely there is a, as Soumya has also mentioned, that user himself is not aware of the requirements. So here in this cartoon, this lady is willing to design the software for this person. She's asking for the requirements from this person, because unless and until she gets requirement specification from him, she may not be able to design the software. But she cannot tell this person the requirements, because the need of the software has been felt by this person to be able to do something. But unless and until he is able to clearly tell what the requirements are, the software development process may not proceed. So, and Sanidhya is mentioning in chat that users just want to automate their processes, but don't know how they want to automate it. So again, this can always be traced back to a very surface level understanding of the problem that is being trying to solve. If you have clarity on the problem that you're trying to solve, definitely then you can gather the requirements. And this is exactly what even happens in hackathons. in hackathons, when the problem statements are released, always try to understand at a deeper level what exactly the problem is. Once you have held a strong grasp over the problem, then you know, because your intuitive mind is wired to find the solutions, then you will, conceptually know what all the requirements are. So through this, at least the central message remains that prior to software development, there is a strong need to understand the requirements, and the requirements can only be clear once you strongly identify with the problem that you have in your mind and the problem that you are trying to solve. So, this is basically, in simple terms, the difference between the bad requirements and good requirements. So at first look of this diagram, what is it that you get out of it?
So bad requirements appear to be gibberish, whereas well aligned requirements are kind of clear and understandable.
Yeah. So it is important to remember that you don't arrive at good requirements in a day, in 2 days, or even within a week. So it definitely, I would not say you directly arrive at this stage. It definitely starts from here. And slowly, slowly, with renewed meetings and feedbacks and brainstorming, it slowly approaches to this stage. So even to arrive at the good requirements phase, we have to move through the phase of bad requirements phase. So always remember, everything in life is a process. Everything in life is a process, and so is the process of identifying the requirements for software that you're developing. So definitely we start from, as Darun mentioned, gibberish and ambiguous set of requirements, and then we move towards the consistent, complete, and unambiguous requirements. But again, talking, collaborating, reviewing plays a very important role in arriving at neat and tidy requirements. And this, all of you are already clear of this, that the system in your head, after that you go to requirement engineering, and requirement engineering is a field in its own manner which specifies the goals, functions, and constraints of your hardware and software systems. And basically a feasibility study is done, which is used to understand whether the product should be developed or whether it's really needed or not. Even after your feasibility report is positive, which will definitely involve communication with your stakeholders and clients, because see, developing a software is a massive undertaking. It is definitely not a joke, not exactly, especially not in terms of time. So you're investing your time and efforts and your energies also in developing. So uh, it is always wise to know whether this race is worth running or not. And that comes after understanding the results of the feasibility study. So this is a sort of snapshot into software requirement specification. So you start off with requirement analysis, then you understand the function analysis and allocate the resources. Then you go on to design synthesis, and at each stage you sort of provide the feedback and go back to your previous stage to understand whether you are doing it right or not. So that is why software requirement specification is not a one-step process. It is again iterative in manner, and it really depends on how sincere you are and how confident, and basically how much you trust the fact that requirement specification to be sealed in time is extremely important for the success of your software. By success, definition by which your team has defined the success of the software. And I would really urge all of you uh, at least to spend some time today and talk to your team members to understand what according to you would be the success of software. And in my subsequent meetings I will be asking this from each group as well. So having talked about software requirement specifications and the importance of requirements, again this is an iteration of what all of us already know, that SRS is a complete description of the behavior of the system to be developed, and that is what you are trying to create in your project, which is due soon. So it will definitely include detail about the functional requirements and non-functional requirements, and even your use case diagram that you are making, that will also form a part of your SRS. Because basically you are trying to show the lay reader or anyone else who wants to go through your software requirements that what your system will actually do, and a broad level conceptual view of how it will do what it is claiming to do. So generally, a requirement specification document consists of these sections, but this is not written in stone. They are subject to changes. This is just one example of how the each section may look like. You may or may not follow this, but this is entirely up to you because it really differs from document to document. The broad level details are the same. The sections can always differ. Again, software requirements documentation is basically the document will be describing what a software does, shall do, and in most cases what it should not do. Also the constraints and the specific use cases in which it should not do what it is supposed to do. Is imagine the ATM machine in which after entering a pin wrong 3 times, the machine will not be able to respond to the customer. So, software requirement documentation is basically a written agreement between the clients and the service providers so that after the product is made and if any glitch is found or if any uh, promised function is not found, then both the parties can point out to the SRS that this was prior discussed, it has not been found, or something that has not been found, it was not prior discussed. So it is basically an agreement that you go back to. Uh, at, at first look, we always feel that the software is only connected to consumers, stakeholders, and clients. But the document that you are creating basically will be used by many people: end users, customers, product managers, project managers, sales, marketing, software architects, usability and testers, and all these people. Especially when the software is relatively new and the concept is relatively new, people would want themselves to be familiarized with the software, and that way SRS will serve a very important purpose. There are other purposes as well, as we will see that basically if the software is complex or developed by many people, then the requirements can help you to better communicate what to achieve. So even within software, there are different types of softwares. And with respect to the different types of software, the SRS plays a very important role. For example, if the software is safety critical and can harm human life, example nuclear power systems or medical equipments, then more formal requirement documentation is often required because human life is directly at stake. So you want to be really extremely sure of the requirements that you are mentioning in your software requirements documentation. However, if the software life is relatively short, for example, 1 or 2 months, then you may not need to spend too much time in requirement documentation. It could be like small mobile applications developed specifically for certain campaign or certain events. In the third case, if the software is a first release, which is later worked upon, requirement documentation is very helpful when managing the change of software. So, your document is not just a piece of paper written at one particular time. If you are continuing to work on that, and normally a company, if it's selling a product or service, keeps on improvising and improving its solutions. So definitely they do maintain a catalog of previous SRS documents so that they can always improve them and provide a different version so that as and when the needs of people transform and change, they can extract requirements from them, put them in your software requirement specification document and start working on them. So definitely SRS also keeps on revising as the product keeps on revising, and that way also it serves a very important purpose. Depending on the software criticality and the life of a software, software requirement document serves very different roles. Now, In this, I just want to show you the different. So these are the links of the SRS documents that you can go through, and this is basically a website link for SRS. I really found this good. It is not a formal document, but it provides you an overview. So I'll just try to show you from this, and then we will also look at the other links. So basically, this is a software requirement specification project for a report. So this is how the index looks like. So the author of this SRS has divided his or her SRS into these parts. So there is an introduction in which they talk about the purpose for which they are designing and the motivation behind it. Literature survey you may not need to include. Basically, it forms part in research, but basically in this context, it will talk about why the software is necessary given the existing softwares in the market and whether or not they are able to tackle the problem or not. In the requirements, this person is talking about functional requirements, non-functional requirements, hardware requirements, software requirements, has also given the choice of the software development life cycle the person is using for developing the software. They may have done some feasibility study and they have put some of the results, or not the results, but how to go about that, the approach to do the feasibility study. And then they are putting the system architecture, then talking about the design and implementation, then use case diagram is there, class diagram is there, which we will come in our lab. Sequence diagram is there, ER diagram is then database normalization. These all will be discussing in our labs soon. And by that standard, I understand that the deadline for SRS is uh, 1st of September. I may extend it because these concepts may also need to be incorporated in your SRS. So basically, this person has given all these index for this software requirement specification. And even for students who do MS in computer science in foreign universities as part of their software engineering course, they themselves are required to create a software requirement specification document, especially because they are working in groups and trying to create a software. So I do encourage you, all of you, at least to sit with your team members and go through these examples of software requirement specification documents, because uh, it is really very beautifully explained of how exactly your system is working, so that the person who reads the software requirement specification document written by you, they can clearly know what exactly is happening or what exactly you are claiming uh, to achieve in your document. Then, so these links I have already shared on the Google Drive, so you will be able to identify, get these documents. So this is relatively longer document. You don't have to create such a long document. These are just examples to show you the different types of, even within software requirement specification documents, there are different ways to approach it. And normally in software engineering class, students are expected to submit this as part of their evaluation. But this is just one part of your evaluation. So basically, there are different ways in which the designers or the developers are trying to show what exactly their product is able to do and how they are achieving that. So I request all of you to go through these SRS samples that I'm sharing, and definitely before writing your own, get a brief overview of how information is presented in the software requirement specification document, because that will really help you to obtain a greater level of understanding. And no need to make it complex. From your software requirement specification document, I should be able to understand in good amount of detail what exactly you are trying to do. So for example, this SRS has been developed by these 4 students as part of some of their course, and this is relatively shorter document, so it's just 26 pages for the academic side of things, and here they have tried to explain how different things are working together. So just have a good look at these. And I know some of the concepts you may not be able to understand right now given in these documents, but because we have not covered, but as we go through our labs and theory lectures, they will become much more clear to you. So these links I've already shared in this PPT. So it would be a good idea to go through these with your team members as you are in the process of designing your own SRS, and that will provide you a good overview of. Earlier, I had shared a IEEE template of software requirement specification, and I thought now is a good time because you've already been working on requirements and use case diagram for some time. So this would be a good time to introduce some of the formal samples of software requirement specification that will really help you to design your own. So that was all for today from software requirement specification from my side. If you have any questions to ask, I would be happy to answer. But other than that, since uh, you are approaching the date for submission of your SRS, I'm also thinking of extending the date because I also want you to include some of the class diagrams and sequence diagrams also in your document so that your SRS looks complete. It's not just about uh, submitting the SRH, but it's also about knowing what exact details go into creation of your software requirement specifications. So as a homework, consider going through these SRS documents with your team members, especially the website link because it's not too lengthy. The other PDFs are quite lengthy, but the website link is quite not quite lengthy, but it provides a good overview of what SRS may look like to provide a good information, good quality of information about your software to the readers of your software projects. So that's all from my end for today. Please let me know if there are any questions.